Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Clifford and I am a junior doctor here in the UK. I've just completed my first year and I'm moving into my second year. So the first year in the UK is called Foundation Year 1, otherwise known as F1. There's a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress about starting this year, as I'm sure there is in every country and every sort of program that you start. So, having just survived it, I thought I'd share with you my top 10 tips for new doctors. Tip number 1, and it's an important one, is not to worry about what you don't yet know, because you'll learn on the job. Before starting this job, the thing I was worried about the most was the fact that I didn't know everything, and how was I possibly going to cope with not knowing how the systems work and how to contact A or get in touch with B or sort out C. But those things you don't need to worry about because you'll pick them up quickly, and nobody expects you to know that when you start. How would you know that? It's a brand new hospital, they're all new systems. Even when you've been in medicine for years, when you move to a different hospital, a different trust, they have different systems and you start again, you don't know. So nobody expects you to know. Don't worry, you'll learn on the job. Once you've done it once, you'll remember it and you can do it again. Top tip number 2 is to ask questions, and ask as many as you want because you're brand new and this is the time that you can ask literally anything. So don't feel like you need to know these things already. Just ask. Whatever it is, people will be happy for you to ask. I've actually spoken to a few of the seniors who've had new juniors come in and shadow them and ask how they're getting on, and you'd be surprised actually. Some people will say, well, they're okay, but they seem a bit too confident and a bit blasé, which I think is really interesting because I doubt that anyone starting F1 or starting their first year as a junior doctor is too confident. Nobody's confident at that stage. How can you be? But I can imagine people trying very hard to look confident. So don't worry about that. Nobody's expecting you to be confident. Ask questions, make sure you get things right, because really your job is health, human health, so it's much better to ask than to guess. Top tip number 3, if in doubt, escalate. It might sound like an obvious thing to say, and it's what you learn throughout med school. What do you do if you get into this situation and you need some help? You call your medical registrar, of course. Now, I think that's a lot easier said than done actually, because I found practically you get to a situation and you might not necessarily know when it's appropriate to call your senior. Now, I would say, and if you remember one thing from this video, the most important thing is this. The point at which it's appropriate to call your senior is the point at which you don't know what to do next. It doesn't matter what this point is. Once you've been to a patient, you've made an initial assessment and you don't know what to do, whether you've had a complete mind blank and you haven't done anything, or you've got a provisional idea of what you think would be the right thing to do, but you're not quite confident to go ahead and do it without asking anyone, just call your senior. They might not even need to come. They might be able to just listen to your plan on the phone and say, yep, sounds good, crack on, well done. Or they might give you some advice, say, sounds good, also do this, or have you thought about doing this? Or they might turn around and say, wow, they sound quite sick, I'm going to come and join you. Either way, if you call your senior, you've got that peace of mind, and it is the most important thing to do for safety. Top tip number 4 is to master your SBAR. Now, for those of you that don't already know what SBAR is, it's a handover tool. And SBAR itself is an initialism for 4 words which describe how to structure that handover. So, S is for situation, B, background, A, assessment, and R, recommendation. I'll go into this in another video just to go through the structure because it is really, really important and really useful, not only for when you call your seniors and you want to let them know about a situation that you possibly need help with. They're going to always want that information to be structured in this way. It gives them the right picture, the right information, and also shows them that you've already done the right bits and bobs to get the information you need, and therefore shows that perhaps it's a more appropriate referral to them. The other place you'll see it a lot is actually when you get called, and nurses are pretty excellent in my experience at doing this. They'll call you up, they'll give you exactly the right information in this format, and that helps you to understand what's going on. And it's only really when you get called by somebody who doesn't give you the information in this format that you feel frustrated and, oh, what do you expect me to do with this? And haven't you even thought to look at this or this or this? By the way, I'm not always that grumpy. Some night shifts only. But it just shows to you when you hear information not presented quite in the right way, how important it is that you do use a good structure. So, SBAR's your man or woman. Or transgender. SBAR is your tool. Once I've created the SBAR video, you shall see a link to watch that on the screen. If it's not there yet, I haven't yet made it, so watch this space. Top tip number 5 is to take breaks. And really, I can't emphasize the importance of this enough. And I know everybody says it, and actually, sometimes it doesn't seem as practical in reality, but it is so important. You're going to be doing very long, very strenuous, very jam-packed shifts. And the benefit of this is that it makes the time go quickly, and I don't think you'll ever get bored at work. At least I've never been bored at work. But the downside is that it can wear you out. So the problem is you feel like you've got this never-ending list of jobs, and actually throughout the day, it might feel like that list is getting bigger rather than being crossed off, and that gives you a feeling that you can't take a break. But actually, not only is taking a break really important for your own well-being and health, actually, but everybody knows, and it's well established, that taking breaks actually improves efficiency. And if you don't have breaks, if you're not well rested, you'll slow down, your mind won't be as sharp. So actually, you'll probably be less safe, slower. Have a break. You need to. Your patients need you to. What I would say to myself 1 year ago today, probably, it's the weekend, isn't it? Gosh, 1 year ago today, when I did my first ever weekend on call, would be this. Make sure you stop for lunch at a reasonable hour. That weekend I was given a 5 A4 page list of jobs to do at handover that morning before I'd even started, before I'd even got any bleeps, before my job list had even started expanding. And so not only had I not dug into that list at all, really, well, I'd obviously done a ton of jobs by about lunchtime, but the jobs that I'd accumulated throughout the day meant that the list was longer. And so I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, so I didn't feel like I could take a break yet. But you just have to. That's just going to be the way it is for the entire job. It's a very alien feeling at the beginning, but you're going to have to get used to it. You'll just be much better for it. Just take breaks. Point number 6 is to talk to people about your experiences. You're probably going to see and deal with things in the first couple of weeks of being a junior doctor that most people won't have to deal with in their entire lives. It's a special job that you get to meet people in these unique and probably vulnerable situations, and they open up to you with so much personal information about their bodies, about their emotions. You'll be so well trusted. If you feel like an imposter when you start this job, then patients will help you to realize that you're not, because the moment they meet you, they're going to share information with you and trust you. And that is an amazing feeling. And you create special bonds with patients. It's the best part of the job. But it can be a part of the worst part of the job as well. People die. Sometimes it's expected, sometimes it's not. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes there is and it's been missed. The point is, things will not always go exactly how you want them to. And the end result will be losing people, losing actual human lives. And that can be really upsetting. And that's a well understood part of medicine. It's tough whatever level you are as a doctor, I understand, even though I'm only junior. But I've been told that it doesn't get much easier. But when you first start, it's more the fact that it's a shock to the system, I think. The first couple of times you have to deal with losing a patient or deal with grieving relatives, it can be really draining. So the most important thing is just to talk to people about it. You're not going to be able to stop it from happening. You're not going to be able to avoid it in your job. But what you can do is share your experiences. All of your colleagues as well at your level are going to be experiencing this for the first time as well. So not only is it important to be able to talk to them and get it off your chest with them, have a little cry with them or have a big cry with them. I had a lot of cries. I still have a lot of cries. I've just had a little cry. But what I mean is that not only will you need to be able to offload to them, but they'll probably need to be able to offload to you as well. So talk to people, listen to people. Don't be afraid to show your emotion because you need to offload. Don't let this sadness or angst or anything like that build up, because that is just not sustainable. Maybe you're not used to crying or showing your emotions or anything yet, but I would say try and, get used to it. I don't want to say this is going to be a really depressing year, but there will be things that happen. And actually, when you have a good cry about something, that's really healthy. It shows that you care and it helps you to move on and not burn out. So talk to people and listen. Point number 7 is to keep a good list. Now, this is especially important on call shifts, but also important in day-to-day work. Sometimes your ward will print off a list that's already got all the patients and some current investigations or plans on that list, and you can just add little bits alongside for the jobs that you need to do for those patients. But when you're on call, often you'll be called about patients that you have no prior information about. So having a good structure for keeping your list, which has the patient details, the relevant information about their background, as well as the jobs you need to do for them, is really important. Everyone has their own variation on how they do this, but I will say that a few people caught an eye on my list structure last year and really liked it and decided to adopt it. And what I'll do actually is I'll make another little video and show you how I do it. Don't have to do it this way, but I would say it's structured in a way that helps you have peace of mind and makes you feel like you're on top of things, which is very important. Top tip number 8 is to try your best to leave work at work. Now, this is a lot easier said than done, but especially when you first start out, you're going to be worrying about things that you've done or might have missed when you go home. That's very normal. It doesn't mean you're incompetent, and it doesn't mean that you're reckless or not doing your job properly. It means that you're normal. So what I would say is, if you find that you get home and you're worrying about something, or you feel that you forgot to do something, just call one of your colleagues at the hospital and ask them to check, or just to pop it on their list to check later if they're busy at that moment. That way, you can have peace of mind that it's going to be looked into, and you don't have to worry about that anymore, and you can just shut off. Leave work at work. This is another reason why it's good to have a really good list, because at the end, when you can see very clearly everything that you've done and you can see clearly anything that hasn't yet been done, it just makes it more likely that you're going to have done everything and then not have to worry about it later in the evening. But leaving it at work is really important, because if you're still thinking about it when you get home or when you're doing other things, that's not really resting. You need to completely shut off from it so that when you go back, you have a fresh mind and you don't feel like you've been working all night in your sleep, which is so invasive. Why does that happen? During my first couple of weeks, I felt like I was working all night and all day, because I'd wake up in my sleep in the middle of a ward round or putting in a cannula, or if there was a way to avoid that, I would. But I would say trying not to think about work after you've left work is probably going to help you not dream about it before you then go to do it again all day. Or vice versa if you're on nights. I had quite a good situation in that I lived a half an hour walk away from the hospital. So in the walk into hospital in the morning, I'd be able to get my head in gear and prepare myself for the day ahead, look at the pretty birds and smell the grass. And on my walk home, if anything had happened during the day that I needed to reflect on, or anything sad had happened that I wanted to get out of my system, or anything good had happened that I wanted to think about, or I'd learnt something new that I wanted to just run over in my head, I could do that on my half an hour walk home. And usually, unless I was really upset by something, by the time I got home, I could shut it all out, which was a really good way of leaving that thing behind me. A nice anti-work transition walk. Obviously, not everybody will have that great situation, but if you can do something to help you transition from work, I'd say that's really helpful. Top tip number 9 is to try and keep up with the things that you did for fun before starting this job. Now, I say this because this is something that I didn't manage very well. I did all sorts of things before starting F1 that I really loved, and I thought of being an integral part of my life. I did lots of medical illustration and posted frequently on my social channels, on my Facebook, Instagram, even some YouTube. And I used to exercise a lot. I used to run half marathons regularly for fun, because exercising made me feel good. So did medical illustration. I really did not do a good job of keeping those up. Well, my excuse was that I was too tired and my new routine didn't really allow for it. But I mean, I find this quite ironic, because before this job, I used to always say, you can't find time for something, you have to make time for something. It's a cliche, but I would preach that regularly, and then I found myself just not doing it. And that kind of doesn't make sense, actually, because the times when I feel most tired and most sluggish is when I haven't exercised. So if I could go back, I'd give myself a bit of a slap and tell myself to try harder to fit in the things I like, the things that I find fun, and the things that I consider to define me, really, and not just become a worker ant whose sole existence is to write discharge summaries and put in cannulas. Top tip number 10 is a boring one, I'm afraid, but one that I think is important enough to make it into the top 10, and that is to keep on top of your portfolio. Now, I can only speak for how this is done in the UK for the foundation programme, but I imagine it's the same everywhere you go. There's this stupid, annoying set of hoops that you have to jump through. Over here, there's all sorts of things like showing that you can do all of your practical procedures, your cannulas, your ABGs, ECGs, blood transfusions, etc., as well as things like case-based discussions. Basically, it's a whole load of tick boxing exercises to show that you're capable of doing the things that you do 24/7 anyway. I won't go into how frustrated this made me, although I will say I do understand why it's necessary. It'll piss you off either way, but it'll piss you off more if you leave it to the last minute. So I would just say the best way to go about this is to be opportunistic. If you've got someone around, a senior or anyone who's qualified in the relevant thing, just say, oh, by the way, I'm about to do that ABG. Would you mind just watching me and then giving me a sign off? And everybody has to go through the same thing, so everybody knows what it's like. And as such, everybody is usually willing to help you. They're like, yes, of course. Send me the ticket and I'll sign it right away. So I know it's such an annoying one to end on, but I would say you'll save yourself so much stress at the end if you just try and keep on top of it. And like I say, the best way to do it is to be opportunistic. Well, there we go. 10 top tips. Good luck. I'll go back to point number 1, which is not to worry. Just don't worry. You'll learn on the job. Good luck. Thank you for watching. If you found that video useful, then please hit like and subscribe because I'm going to be releasing more and I'd love to see you on the next video.